as a teacher, as a public figure, as somebody who shares his opinion with many people, I'm very often approached with a concern that manifests itself in other people in different questions. For instance, how do I learn? How do I succeed? How do I make a name for myself? How do I gain popularity? All these different questions. And in the end, they all really mean one thing. They're all the means to one specific end, and that is, will I make it? Am I going to make it as an artist? Today, tomorrow, in 10 years, in 50 years? Am I doing the right thing? Have I chosen the right career path? Or am I wasting my time and chasing after ghosts, so to speak? Am I going to look back at my life at 50, 60 years old and say to myself, man, did I choose the wrong career path? I've spent an entire life of bill collectors and stresses and demotivation and depression and all that kind of crap. And I think the most honest way to answer that question would be to just tell you about my life experience and what I went through in my life and what got me to where I am today, in a very candid, very non-scripted way. Now, I've spoken in the past on my YouTube channel about how, my career was by many means not a cut and dry, straightforward type of career. I didn't walk out of that being the greatest artist, being a mega success, but I was somebody who was recognized for being really good at what he did. Like, being an artist, I was always recognized since a very young age as being a very artistic person. Now, I grew up with that knowledge, I grew up with that reality, but when I compare myself to a lot of my peers and students at the age they are when I first started, and I look at how good they are, either A, this bar has been raised quite a bit since I was young, or B, they're just much better than I was at that time. And I find it very ironic and almost comical to look at students of mine, or just friends, people who are young and aspiring artists and stuff like that, ask me the question, how do you succeed? Because if I was in their shoes at that time, at that age, I would be, well, I might be a lot more confident, but maybe not. But if I had their talent compared to the talent I had at that age, I would be better off, I suppose. I would be a better artist, in my opinion. And that's what strikes me. As somebody who's been a director, who's a teacher, who runs a YouTube channel, who's invited to different events to do talks, to somebody who's been in many leadership positions, when I see artists with that level of talent express or reach out to me for confidence, it teaches me something about the human species. And that is the fact that confidence is not necessarily directly related to skill. Because I see humbling, amazing skill every single day. But I see a lack of confidence that goes with it. And that lack of confidence very often is connected to age. You're newer to the career, you have no point of reference. You don't know how you compare to your peers. You don't know how marketable you are. You've never been hired for your stuff before. It might be a little bit of a competitive spirit. You're sitting next to people that you feel can draw better than you or have more talent than you have, type of idea. But from the perspective of somebody who is where I am, looking at them, looking at you, when I see your work and I see how incredible you are at your age, if I was you, I just simply would have all the confidence in the world. I just would, because I'd know for a fact that I was incredible, that I had an incredible amount of talent. So I think the first lesson, just from brainstorming it here in front of you, is one of the big lessons about about success, and one of the big lessons about knowing whether or not you're going to make it, is time. It's having the time and experience you need and being exposed to enough sources of confirmation of your skill that it slowly starts to dawn on you that, hey, I am starting to get somewhere with all this work. I've spent so many years practicing, so many years learning, going to different schools and stuff like this, and studying these different things, and you know, succeeding and failing and having money and being broke and working at the grocery store as a cashier and then working as a waiter and then getting a really good paid gig and then getting sacked from that gig, or maybe it was a temporary contract, and all these different songs and dances you're going to go through throughout the course of your career slowly starts to culminate into a belief in yourself and a history and an understanding of the fact that life is about ups and downs, but if you care about something, you'll stick it through. I think that's the first big takeaway to take from this whole thing. The second thing is actually directed a little bit more towards slightly older artists. I'd say once you start hitting your 30s, and then your 40s, and then your 50s. And I'm right there kind of in that epicenter, in that 40s range. And one of the things that I very often express to my students, I even have videos in my mentorship that kind of discuss this whole topic. And that's the fact that success and notoriety and a sense of confidence, having a certain kind of solid and refined workflow when it comes to art, because art is a very organic thing, right? It's a very unpredictable medium. Takes time. It takes time to build popularity. It takes time to get better. It takes time to do all of these different things. And some people build technical skills really fast. By the time they're 25, they're balling in art. But maybe they've sacrificed other parts of their life. And maybe some people earlier on in their life want to dedicate their lives to raising kids. Maybe in their 20s they have a young family and they want to spend more time doing that. And maybe it isn't until they're in their 30s and 40s that their kids get a little older and they start to be able to invest more time into their self. So they distance themselves from being more practical with their career choices and start to take more risks. Because being an artist, pursuing an artistic career, is very often a career that belongs to more of a risk-taker type of mentality. Do this for a moment. Think about some of your favorite actors, singers, visual artists like illustrators, designers, concept artists, that kind of thing, fine artists, actors, playwrights, screenwriters, set designers, anybody who works in a more artistic medium, more often than not. Ask yourself the question, when did you discover them? What was it about their work that made you discover them? Ask yourself the question, what books did J.K. Rowling write before Harry Potter? When did Walt Disney make a big name for himself? Think about Seinfeld. Think about Brian Regan. Think about all these different comedians. When did you discover them? Did they really become a household name? Bill Burr, another one. Think about different musicians. Think about different actors, Meryl Streep, Kevin Kline, Robert De Niro. You know, think about all of these big names in Hollywood, these big Hollywood stars. When did they win their first Oscar? When was Jim Carrey really discovered? I'm not saying when did he become a genius. I'm saying when was he really discovered? When did he become a household name? How old was he when he made Ace Ventura? Okay? Ask yourself these questions. You might be very surprised to hear that before the ages of 35, 40, 45, sometimes 50, 55, 60, you might not have even known they existed. And regardless of their genius, regardless of their incredible talent, you had no idea who they were. And you start to realize something. When you're my age, you start to realize something, that you kind of look around at other people your age, other people that you grew up with, and you realize, I never knew who Michael Caine was until maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And when I discovered him, he was much older. He was an older man, but I didn't even know what he did before that. He had to be doing something. He had to be an actor. He had to do something to pay his bills. He had to be developing his skills, but I didn't know who he was. It's very easy to think that these geniuses just sprouted out of the ground like a Cabbage Patch Kid. and became these overnight successes without any kind of training or experience beforehand, and that's completely false. They spent their entire lives owning their skills, developing their skills, refining their skills, learning how to connect to an audience, learning the balance between having integrity but also respecting their audience. The career of being an artist, the career of connecting with people on both a visual and emotional level, is an art in and of itself, outside of the painting and drawing aspect of things. So my answer, my big answer to you is, if you're wondering whether or not you're going to succeed, my answer is, if you really, really love something, it's just a matter of time. But in order to have time on your side and not burn yourself out about it, not spend your entire career stressing out over it, I've been completely broke. I've been completely destitute. And within the same month, I would be sitting across from an executive producer for a huge video game company, schmoozing and talking like I'm a big hotshot, and then be back to being broke again after that. Life is an adventure, and life gives you ups and downs, but that also builds your character. And I think that as artists, we need to experience the good and the bad. You can't be exposed to a perfect lifestyle. You can't have life handed to you on a silver platter and expect to develop a sense of authenticity and reality and compassion and empathy for the world around you, which to me are some of the most important qualities when it comes to not only being an artist, but being a human being in general. When I look at some of the most influential people to me, some of the people that really stand out to me in terms of their quality as artists, like people like Meryl Streep, for instance. She herself said in a speech once, I'm not sure what speech it was, I might have even quoted in other videos, but she said, empathy is one of the most important qualities a human being can possess. And that to me is one of the most important things I've ever heard another person say. And it warms my heart to know that it came from a fellow artist, an actor, right? And that empathy comes from living. She's never been a Holocaust survivor, but she can empathize with it. She can empathize with the human experience. It's that living and feeling and having wonderful days and having terrible days, and it's being on top of the hill, being a rich diva one day and being piss poor the next. You know what I'm talking about. It's being on the top of the hill and being on the bottom of it all at the same time. And it's that perspective that artists need to express themselves in an incredibly authentic and meaningful way to their audience. One of the most heartwarming and endearing and motivating and driving forces behind what it is that I do as a YouTuber, as a speaker, as a director, as a teacher, as a father, is when people approach me in the comments, anywhere, and they say, I really connected to you on a personal level. You really hit a heartstring deep inside. You really said something to me that really resonated with me. That to me is what motivates me the most, I think, than anything else. Because I interpret that as, I recognize you as somebody who's been through what I'm going through right now. And it gives me a sense of comfort and confidence to know that somebody who's on this side of the camera right now, being me, can express the same thing that you're feeling being on that end of the camera. And that, to me, means that if I'm ever going to positively affect anybody else's life, it's because I lived it. And because when I'm expressing these hardships, or I'm expressing these goods and these bads and the successes and failures that you will experience. You'll experience different ones, but you'll experience just as wonderful, if not better, experiences than I am, and I have. That this is all a part of life. And you know what? Sometimes you're gonna be broke, or you're gonna have an amazing time and spoil your kids for Christmas because you were well paid that year. Or teach your children the value of not always getting what you want, but still having love and still having a roof over your head and still having a compassionate, loving parent, despite the fact that they might not be rolling in the money at that particular point in their life. That's life. when technique and perseverance and ambition and thoughtfulness and strategy aren't enough and you're still not succeeding yet, passion will. Your love and your passion and your knowledge in the fact that you will get where you want to get, but you're going to have to roll over a few rocky hills to get there, then you will succeed. And I've been through every rocky hill you could possibly imagine. I won't list them out today. And here I am today. And you know what? Maybe one day I'm going to make a YouTube video for you on my iPhone because I had to sell my camera because I was broke. But I'll still keep making YouTube videos for you because that's free. And I'll be doing it with some shitty audio and shitty video in some shitty apartment, and who gives a shit? That's life. But today I've got a nice camera and I'm sharing hopefully inspiring message for you today to keep on going, and don't be so damn hard on yourself. Get over yourself. You're gonna be just fine. All right? So thank you very much for joining me on this week's episode of Behind the Scenes. As of today, we are back to our weekly schedule. So every Monday morning, Eastern time, probably around 8 to 9 a.m., I publish my videos. And so definitely stay tuned for that, as well as the Brush Sauce Theater Art Contest with myself and Tyler Edlin, a free online competition for everybody. So you can come in and join and get some professional critique and some awesome exposure. Doesn't cost you a penny, so it's a win-win situation for everybody. And of course, don't forget about my private online art mentorship, Lucid Pixel. You can go and check it out down below in the description. And I love you all, and happy painting, and keep your chin up, and I'll see you next week. Take care.